Despite all the precautions we may take and all the preparation we may do, we will eventually die. Our instinct is to fight to survive, but we cannot always be successful. Whether we die from a sudden illness from a pandemic or in our old age after a long and fruitful life, death comes for us all. Like any event you might prepare for, you should prepare for death while you're living. Though death is inevitable, few people actually acknowledge this fact. Fewer people still prepare for it. Most people don't even view death as part of life. People are so afraid of death that they push it out of their thoughts. They instinctively avoid it even in their thoughts. Like any event in life, however, careful preparation can make the difference. Careful preparation can provide you a smooth transition, comfort to your survivors, and keep your possessions and final wishes amongst your loved ones. Benjamin Franklin once wrote that in this world nothing can be said to be certain except for death and taxes. Everyone will eventually die, whether from natural causes, because of disaster, or because of other human beings. There really is no exception. Being prepared for the inevitable will ease the path for your survivors and further encourage their continued survival. So preparing for death is really about ensuring the survival of the ones you love. In this video, I'll discuss the basics of how to prepare for death. While I'm not an estate or financial planner, I will cover some of the paperwork you should have in place, precautions to have in place, defining your gifts to your survivors, and how preparing for your inevitable death can actually lead to a better life. So few people realize that if you don't have a plan in place at the time of your death, the state gets heavily involved, taking a percentage of what you leave behind, and they end up making decisions regarding your dependents. It really is critical to have a plan ready, which we'll cover in this video. Number 1, paperwork. The technical part of dying is paperwork. It's also the most commonly overlooked part of end-of-life planning. The lack of solid documents results in decisions being made for you, and probate courts taking what you earned in life instead of passing it on to who you want by your directives. Even at death, there is still going to be paperwork. One of the most important documents you will need is a will or living trust. Both documents are directives about your final moments and what needs to occur after you die. A will is a document that directs who will receive your property at your death, and it appoints a legal representative to carry out your wishes. By contrast, a trust can be used to begin distributing property before death, at death, or afterward. This is critical if you are incapacitated prior to your death. If you're intubated, on life support, or in a coma, who will have the medical power of attorney to make health decisions for you? Do you have specific funerary instructions? This can be defined in a trust, but a will is only viewed after your death. Another difference between a will and a trust is that a will passes through probate. This means a court oversees the administration of the will and ensures the will is valid and the property gets distributed and reassigned in the way the deceased wanted. Probate is costly, time-consuming, and often frustrating for your survivors. Filing petitions, the assignment of a stranger from the court, and the arduous process of having accounts and assets changed from the deceased to his or her survivors can cost anywhere from 2 to 7% of your total estate's value. A trust, however, passes outside of probate, so a court does not need to oversee the process. This can save time and money. Unlike a will, which becomes part of the public record, a trust can remain private. A will allows you to name a guardian for children and to specify funeral arrangements, while a trust does not. Another variant of this primary document is a living will. In a living will, you may specify what medical procedures you want or don't want in the event that your health becomes critical. It comes into play when, and only when, you can't voice your own wishes. An irreversible coma, a situation where you no longer are coherent and unable to express the steps you want to take to preserve or not preserve your life, whether to intubate you and do not resuscitate or DNR orders, are all decisions that should be made either by someone you appoint or through an advanced medical directive incorporated in a living will. Whether you appoint someone to make decisions for you or you direct decisions through a document, a living will is specifically designed to deal with how you feel about life-ending versus life-sustaining procedures. The problem that can still arise is that in an emergency situation, life-saving procedures may be held up while people search for any documentation you may have about your possible end of life. The living will can address issues of palliative care and organ donation. It allows you to express your wishes in advance at a time when your life is not yet threatened and you're thinking clearly. If you do appoint someone to oversee your directives or to become guardians of your children, you must be certain that they are up for the task. You may want to appoint a level-headed, calm person for your medical decisions, someone else to be the executor of your estate, and someone else entirely to be the guardian of your children. This will add a little bit of implied accountability and hedge against one person ignoring your children and squandering your assets. With no document in place, you're really taking a gamble as to whether any children will ever realize any inheritance from you. This document is especially important even if you don't own many properties or have any assets. It takes an enormous burden off your survivors. If you don't have a living will or living trust after you die, all of your properties and assets will be controlled by a probate court. They will distribute all of your assets based on the laws of the state where that asset is located. When making the decision of which document is the right one for you, it's always advisable to consult a lawyer. If you're fairly certain with a little more of your own research, there are several websites with templates that you can use to easily create the document. The worst thing you can do is procrastinate creating this protective document. It's the first solid step to preparing for your inevitable death. You should also organize all of your important documents that your family might likely need. This would include your birth certificate, divorce, separation papers, military service records, religious documentation, insurance policies, retirement plans, deeds, and pink slips. You also need to organize all of the debts you have, especially the large ones like your mortgage, so it will be easier for your family to pay them. All of these documents should be kept in a secure location in your home, somewhere like a safe. In the event you had to leave your home in an emergency, it's also good to have these in an easy-to-carry bag or folder. At least one trusted individual should be able to access them to carry out any emergency directives. Number 2, delete yourself. In addition to the keystone documents you need to have a way to secure and delete your digital life. You'll need to hand over all the keys to all of your digital accounts and even your computer to someone that you can completely trust. This would include all your social media accounts, email addresses, subscription accounts, and other digital profiles or signatures that you may have online. Unless this person is also going to be the executor of your will, you may not want to hand over your bank account information. In the digital world, all of your online profiles and signatures don't just disappear automatically when you die. You'll need someone else to manage these accounts and delete them if necessary. Your family might find a way to access these accounts even if you don't leave the username and password, but it would be a tedious process since they need to show important documents like your name, address, ID, and a death certificate. It is much easier for them if you leave a list of usernames and passwords to all of your accounts online if you have them. Now, a simpler, more secure method is through using a program like 1password.com. There, you can secure all your passwords behind a single password, so you only have one piece of information to pass along to your trusted friend or family member. If you don't assign someone to access these accounts or manage or delete them, they will be left untouched, and there may be many potential risks in doing that. Your online accounts can be targeted by hackers, and your identity, even at death, could be stolen. Some hackers specifically target people they find in the obituary pages. In doing so, they know that there will likely be no one monitoring the accounts. Can you imagine a hacker transferring the money out of your bank accounts weeks ahead of the formal reading of your will? A hacker could open credit card accounts and max them out and leave your heirs with debts they may not be able to dispute. A hacker can extort friends who may not yet know about your demise. To avoid these and other possibilities, you need to create a list of all the online accounts you have with usernames, passwords, and any instructions needed to access the account. Again, consider using a tool that allows you to store all of your passwords in one place. It's also important that you provide instructions on what you want to do with each account. Some websites like Facebook can memorialize your page if you want, and can appoint a legacy person to do this for you. This will prevent friends from receiving your birthday announcements every year. But the best thing you can do is have the trusted person you assign delete all your digital footprints. Doing this will ensure that any potential issues or problems with your online profiles and accounts will be deleted. Number 3, beneficiaries. If you think your last will and testament is already enough to designate who among your relatives will receive certain assets that you will leave behind, then you're mistaken. Some assets require you to put a beneficiary in the policy. This is true for life insurance policies, retirement plans, and other financial accounts. These are outside of any will you may have established. The person listed as a beneficiary is the only person who will claim any funds from those policies and accounts. You may also want to make sure beneficiaries are updated. For example, if you obtained a life insurance policy and made your wife the beneficiary, but a few years later you had a divorce or remarried again, your first wife would receive the funds from that policy. No will can override that. Part of your end-of-life preparation is to list out every account with their values and their designated beneficiaries. You should revisit this information every few years to make sure all policies reflect your end-of-life desires. It's also a possibility that the beneficiary you put in your policy dies before you. If he or she is the sole beneficiary, then the proceeds will go to your estate. If there is no will, then all the proceeds will default to a lengthy probate court for eventual distribution. When possible, define a secondary or contingent beneficiary. This will ensure that your funds are allocated properly after your death. Think of the beneficiary as the easiest way to transfer your money to your designated heirs. Most retirement plans and investment accounts allow you to modify these beneficiaries online. Make sure your accounts are up to date and only the executor has access to them. Beneficiary transfers can be implemented with little directions, simply with the presentation of a death certificate. Beneficiaries are not notified when designated, so you maintain confidentiality around your disbursement decisions. It's the simplest method for passing on your life's accumulated wealth, but it's also the easiest way to send your funds in the wrong direction post-mortem if you haven't updated them. Number 4, the right mental attitude. In addition to wills, your digital keys, and designating your beneficiaries, your end-of-life planning should be viewed as an opportunity to develop the right attitude towards the inevitable. The fear of death is not an unusual thing. Since time immemorial, man has feared or ignored the only real certainty in life, death. Living in fear of death is not very helpful, nor does it make for a very fulfilling life now. An essential part of your end-of-life plan is to develop the right mental attitude when it comes to how you view death. Viewing death as a scary thing or avoiding planning only hampers how we currently live our lives. If we accept that death is unavoidable and can happen at any time without warning, we can start to have a more fulfilling life, progressing forward, and trying to be the best that we can while also being honorable and virtuous. From a survival standpoint, knowing your end of life is planned frees your thoughts of it and allows you to focus on the next thing you need to survive. That alone makes your chances of surviving greater. The process of end-of-life planning can help us develop the right mental attitude about living. Death is about letting go of connections with people. One of the main purposes of life is to build and establish connections with people. When we die, we're letting go of those connections. Having this kind of thinking will make it easier for us to prepare and plan for the end-of-life experience that we will have. Having the right mental attitude towards the inevitable will also encourage us to live a better quality life right now, and that's the best thing you can hope to get from your end-of-life planning. Number 5. View planning your end of life as a new way of living your best life. And this leads us to the final point in your end of life planning, living your best life now. View planning your end of life as a new way of living your best life now. Knowing and accepting death and then eventually planning and preparing for your death can be a sad and depressing exercise, and this is a reason people largely avoid it. But that doesn't have to be the case. You can view this knowledge as an inspiration and motivation to be the best you can be, while also focusing more on what truly matters in life. Once you accept that death can come at any time, many of the small and petty things that you used to think about become irrelevant. A small mistake you made at work, your kid breaking a glass, or even someone cutting in front of you while driving becomes really unimportant. Just take a look at the coronavirus pandemic. Yes, it's devastating and has caused great stress to our plans and careers, but it has also allowed us to contemplate the crazy schedules that we had when things were quote-unquote normal, and it has provided us the opportunity to consider more the value of family, friends, and the time that we spend with them. Life sometimes allows us to reflect on what truly matters. This is how we should view the planning for our end-of-life journey. Instead of seeing it as something sad or something to be avoided, we should look at it as an opportunity to start preparing and defining the story of what truly matters in our life. Reflecting on the inevitability of our death will allow us to see clearly the things that we feel we must still accomplish in this life. Planning for the end of our days can actually be the beginning of new ways of how we can live our life. This channel focuses on the subject of prepping. Prepping is all about the importance of being ready for almost everything that could come our way to ensure our survival. However, it's also equally important that we're prepared for the event that we eventually die. Death is something that we cannot really avoid or get away from. It's part of the natural cycle of our life here on Earth. Everyone will eventually die, and being prepared for it will ensure the family we leave behind won't have to face any issues or difficulties. We discuss in this video the 5 things that need to be addressed before we die. Chief among them is making sure that paperwork is in order. This means having a will, a living will, or a living trust so that your assets and property are properly distributed to the right people. This means to also have your medical directives documented and guardianships defined. You should also keep all the important documents that your family might need, like birth certificates, religious documentation, military service records, deeds, and so on, arranged and kept in a sturdy and secure folder that you can easily take with you if you have to evacuate. It's important that you make sure the beneficiaries of your insurance, retirement plans, and pensions are up to date with the right people. Beneficiaries supersede any will or trust, so you have to ensure the right names are listed to avoid the claims going to the wrong people or to probate court. Aside from making sure your paperwork is in order, you also need to ensure that your digital footprint is deleted. You don't want hackers stealing your identity and causing problems and chaos for your family and friends that are left behind. You need to have someone that you can trust who will manage and delete your online profile. It's also critical that you have the right mental attitude when it comes to death. It is something that you should not fear, but instead acknowledge that will happen. This will keep your thoughts more focused in a survival situation. Finally, planning and preparing for your end-of-life journey should not be seen as sad and depressing. Instead, you should look at it as an opportunity to properly write the story of your life. End-of-life planning allows you to focus more on what matters and on accomplishing the things you feel that you still need to accomplish. Preparing for your death should not be a signal that the end is near. Instead, you should look at it as the beginning of how you can properly live your life. While we covered a lot in this video, I definitely encourage you to do more studies and investigate this a little further. And at the end of the day, if you're ready to move forward, definitely talk to a financial planner. Or you can look at websites like LegalZoom, where they have templates you can download and have sent in to get legally certified to ensure that you have all the paperwork in place. If you have any thoughts or feedback, please feel free to post those in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed the video, click on the like button and share on social media. As always, be safe out there.